All right, guys. Today we are going to be learning a little bit about histograms, or more or less reviewing histogram graphs, which is just another way to view data that's provided to you or display data that's provided to you. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started with our histogram notes for today. In this assignment, you will see that there is a page of notes and a page of practice problems. I will start you off on one of the practice problems and allow you to finish it. And the other practice problem you need to do on your own. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so a histogram, I'm going to scroll this down a little bit. Okay, a histogram is just a bar graph that shows the frequency of data with equal intervals. Okay, and the key difference between a bar graph or just a regular bar graph and a histogram is that there are equal intervals. Also, a key difference between a bar graph and a histogram is that there are no spaces between the bars. Okay, and what I'm talking about here are the bars on your graph. There is not going to be any spaces, okay? So there will be no space there with a histogram, okay? So there's no spaces. And also something to keep in mind with a histogram is that you cannot determine the mode with a histogram. You cannot determine the mode or the range, and you can't really even determine the mean, okay? Those are all things that you cannot determine with a histogram. They're a good display of data, and there are reasons why we use them, but you would not use a histogram to determine those specific values that we talked about yesterday a little bit, okay? So the first thing we're going to do in our notes is practice reading a histogram. And this is something, again, that you should have done in previous years in math. And this is considered statistics. Okay, and we're going to be talking about statistics until the end of winter break. And then after we come back from winter break, we'll be talking about two variable statistics. So these are the next two units we'll be covering in class. There's section 9 and 10. Okay. So before we even get started looking at our statements and our true or false, I want to look over here at the histogram they've provided. Okay, so they've given us time spent on homework. That's the title of our graph. We have our hours for our x-axis, and we have our frequency on our y-axis. So if this is the number of hours they've spent working on homework, we can assume that the frequency is just the number of students, okay? So how many students spent 1 to 4 hours on homework? Well, I look over here at my bar graph and I go straight across and I'm at 2. So 2 students spent 1 to 4 hours on homework. Now, how many students spent 5 to 8 hours on homework? Well, we go up here to the top of our graph, our bar, and we see it's 6. We go for 9 to 12 hours. We're going to look straight across and we see 8. Okay. Then we go back to 13 to 16 hours and we go straight across and we will see 4. And how many students spent 17 to 20 hours on homework? That would be 0. Okay, so we have equal intervals on our graph, which makes this a histogram. We have bars without any spaces. All right. So now we have to look at the data, the questions they've given us over here on the left, and determine if it's true or false. So it says 3 students spent 5 to 8 hours on homework. Well, 5 to 8 is right here on our bar graph, and there's actually 6 students. So that is false. Okay, because there were 6 students that studied 5 to 8 hours, not 3. 4 students spent more than 12 hours on their homework. So 4 students spent more than 12. So we're going to look not including 12, but more than 12. So that's the 13 to 16 interval and the 17 to 20 interval. And yes, there are 4 students listed there, so that is true. The interval with the greatest frequency is 9 to 12. Well, the greatest frequency just means the tallest, right? Which one is the tallest? Well, that is 9 to 12, so that is true. 6 students spent less than 9 hours on homework. Okay, well, less than 9 hours is 5 to 8 and 1 to 4, and that is actually 8 students, not 6, so that is a false statement. This says you cannot find the mode of this data. That is correct. We cannot determine the number that happened the most often because of the type of graph that we have. We do not know the individual data points. We just know the data points and where they fall on these specific intervals. Okay, so that is true. We cannot find the mode of this data. Final one is it says the median of the data is in the interval of 9 to 12. Well, the median, okay, the median would need to be the middle number, okay? Well, the middle number, we first need to determine the total number. Well, 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 8 is 16, plus 4 is 20. So there were 20 students surveyed. And to find the middle of 20 data points, you would be between 9 and 10. Oops. It would be student between 9 and 10, okay? So students 9 and 10 are going to fall in this interval, okay? They would fall somewhere within that interval. Therefore, the median of the data is in the interval of 9 to 12. That is true because the data points between 9 and 12 would fall in that middle interval there. Okay, I know that's a little bit of a tricky question. We just have to think about it and look at how many people were surveyed and where would that middle term fall. Okay, so now we're going to practice making our own histogram with this bottom chart here. Okay, so to make our own histogram, they gave us the following information. It says one town held a jumping frog contest at the summer fair. The jumps made by the frogs are shown below. Make sure to label your access and give your histogram a title. So our title here is going to be frog jumps. Okay, something real easy because we're talking about jumping and we're talking about frogs. Our y-axis is always going to be our frequency. Because we're talking about data and statistics, so our y is always going to be our frequency. And down below, that's going to be the number of jumps per frog. Okay, we cannot determine the intervals quite yet. And so actually on what you printed out, I want you to cross out the intervals that they provided. Okay, we're not going to use those intervals because I don't think they're a great representation or they're an even interval. So we're going to cross those out, and we're going to make our own intervals. Okay, so looking at these numbers, we first need to identify our lowest number in this data and our highest number. Our lowest number is right here at 14, and our highest number is right here at 199, okay? So what I did is I identified my lowest number is equal to 14, and my highest number is equal to 199. So that means that I need my numbers to fall. I need my intervals to fall between 10 and 200 roughly, and I need to use the bar graph that they provided to me, which was 4. So I just can take 200 and divide by 4, and I'm going to use the intervals 0 to 49, 50 to 99, 100 to 149, and then my last interval will be 150 to 199. And that will satisfy all of the numbers in the data set that they've provided to me, and I can now label my graph with those specific intervals. And I wanted to make sure that they were all equal, okay? Because all of your intervals have to be equal. So 0 to 49 will be that first column. 50 to 99 is the second column. 100 to 149 is the third column. And 150 to 199 is that fourth column. My rows, I'm going to go up by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, I noticed here that I have over 20 data points, or 20 data points. I have 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 25 data points. So that means I'm going to need to have at least enough room to go up to about 10 or 12. And I can go a little higher if I need to. But I'm going to go up by 2s on my frequency side. Okay, now I am going to highlight, or you can just cross off as you mark them, but I like to highlight in case I make any mistakes or forgot something. So first I'm going to look through for all my numbers that are 0 to 49. So going across the first row, I see 46 and 14. Going across my second row, I don't have any. My third row, I have 33. My fourth row, I don't have any numbers, and my fifth row, I don't have any numbers that fall into the category of 0 to 49. So I can mark off my 1, 2, 3 tally marks. My frequency here is 3, and I can fill in my bar graph up to 3, fill in that whole interval in either color or shade it in. Okay. You can just shade with pencil. It doesn't have to be color-coded like mine is. Mine's just more visually appealing for you as you watch the video. Okay, my next interval is going to be 50 to 99. 50 to 99, I'm going to look through all the numbers in my first row. I have 61. My second row, 73. I'm looking for 50 to 99. Third row, I have 52. Fourth row, I have 82. And then in my fifth row, I have 95. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I was doing tally marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And my frequency is 5. So I'm going to go over to my bar graph, go up to 5 on my histogram. And then I can shade it in. Okay, I had 5 frogs jumped 50 to 99 times. All right, let's move on to our next interval. And our next interval will be blue, and that will be 100 to 149. So all of the numbers that fall into that interval, we have 133, 105, 128, 119, 105, 149, 120, 146, 131, and 123. So total, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I had 10 numbers. If I did the tally marks, it would look like this. I have 10 frogs that jumped between 100 and 149 times. Okay, so I would draw that in on my histogram, on my graph, and shade it in. All right, one more to go. So that means all the numbers that we have left should fall between 150 and 199, but let's make sure. We have 190, 186, 151, 199, 155, 182, and 168. So there are 7 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 numbers that fall between 7 frogs that jumped between 150 and 199 times. Okay. So now let's look at the additional practice that I attached for you in the assignment. I will do this first one with you, or at least get you started, and then you can do the second one on your own. Okay. So given this data, we are told 20 essays were written for an English exam. The number of words included in the exams are listed below. Okay, so given this data, and they already told us the number of essays, and they graphed the number of words, they told us what the axis was going to be. Given this data, we have to determine what the intervals will be. So just like I did before, I'm going to look for my lowest number and then my highest number. Okay, the lowest number that I am seeing is 108. Okay, so my lowest, nope, see, I found a lower one. Good thing I can erase. My lowest number I see is 107. Okay, and lowest I marked in orange, so I want to be consistent. So my lowest number is 107. And my highest number is going to be oh, look at that. You guys are probably yelling at me. No, miss, there's a lower number. 100. My lowest number is 100. Okay. My highest number is 156. Okay. So now that I've identified my lowest and my highest number, that means I'm now going to look at my bar graph to see what my equal intervals would be. So my equal intervals need to be between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different spaces. So I'm going to go up by tens from 100 to 159. Okay, so I would have 100 to 109, 110 to 119, 120 to 129, 130 to 139, 140 to 149, and finally 150 to 159. Okay, now that I've determined my intervals, you can either start making tally marks or you can just mark them off as you go. Okay, so 100 to 109 I will highlight in yellow, and I'm going to go through and start highlighting my numbers that fall into that interval. So I have 100, 108, 107, and those are the only 3 numbers that fall into that interval. So I would draw my bar graph, and I'm going to make that line just a little bit thicker because I'm on a larger bar graph now. on a larger graph, and I mean histogram, not bar graph. It's just a fancy bar graph is really all a histogram is. Okay. My next interval, 110 to 119, I'm going to highlight those in green. So I'm looking for numbers that are 110 to 119. So 118 falls into that category. 114, 116, 110. Those four, 1, 2, 3, 4, fall into this interval. And so now I can start filling it in. All right. The interval 120 to 129. Okay. All of my data points that fall between 120 and 129. So I have 124, 124 again, 128, 127, 125, and 122. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm at the top of my histogram graph, but I can now fill that in. Okay. $130 to $139, I'm going to do in blue. $140 to $149 in purple, and $150 to $159 I will do in orange. Okay. So you should be able to finish the rest of this on your own. I will go ahead and finish this one off for you, and then you can finish the other one on your own, and then you can turn in the assignment. But to look for my intervals 130 to 139, I'm going to have 135 and 130, 133, and 134. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mark that off. 140 to 149. I have 140, 142. So I can fill those two in. And then finally, I have my one and only 156, which I would fill in here and graph as such. Okay, so that is how you finish and fill out a histogram. Please make sure that you finish this other histogram before turning in your assignment. Bye, guys. I hope you have a great day.